Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al, week 9, Thursday night DraftKings Showdown. We have a great game. Well, we have a game. There's definitely a game between the New York Jets and their brand new franchise quarterback, Mike White, and the Indianapolis Colts, who do nothing but get pass interference calls all day long. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I promise. I don't promise. It could be fun. There's some interesting players. I'm going to talk about them. We're going to talk about all the options that you have and how to go about building lineups for a showdown slate like we do on every Monday night and every Thursday night video. The total in this one is 46.5. The Colts are favored by 10.5. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the notifications bell. Leave me a reply down below. We're also going to hit a pick'em over on Underdog Fantasy. I believe that they're doing a first deposit match up to $100, and you'll get $10 free if you use my promo code ALSMIZZLE on that first deposit. So let's get after it. Let's take a look at everything on this slate. What are we waiting for? Let's go.
He's a legend.
All right, let's start over here on Underdog Fantasy. As I said, all you have to do on your first deposit is use promo code ALSMIZZLE, all one word, and that will give you $10. You have to check on the deposit match up to $100. I don't know if that's totally a thing right now or if it was short term just for the weekend. Just ask before you do it, but when you use my thing, you get $10. I'm going to do 2 because they don't have a big menu. We record this on Tuesday morning Pacific time in case anything changes with this slate. So I'm going to go over 109 rush plus receiving yards for Jonathan Taylor, and I'm going to go over 49 rush yards for good old Michael Carter for $50 to win 150. Boom. So that is in right there, as you can see. And let's head over to the slate. Now, look, the Jets are the worst team in the league at stopping opposing running backs. The single most DraftKings points allowed to opposing running backs on the season, and the most DraftKings points allowed to running backs the last 4 weeks. If nothing else, at least the Jets are consistent. And so Jonathan Taylor is probably going to be the most popular captain on Monday night. And for good reason. 5 straight games of over 20 DraftKings points. You kind of want to isolate in the captain spot to players that you believe, like cut down your captains that are going to be available to you. Cut that down to players that you believe are going to be the highest or have a chance to be the highest scoring player on the slate. Now, based on the pricing, you can't just stuff everybody this week, especially if you have Jonathan Taylor in there at captain, right? If you have Taylor at captain, you can't just be like, okay, I want him and I want Pittman and I want Carter and I want, oh, I can't afford anybody else. Need 3K, so I can't afford one more. You're going to have to stuff in a couple of value plays there, and we're going to see if there are any on this slate. But as I said, Taylor will be the most popular captain. If you're using the Fantasy Labs lineup builder or any lineup builder, quarterback and captain is going to be something that pops up a lot just because quarterbacks do tend to have a higher median projection, though should have, at least in terms of their top 5% outcomes, a lower ceiling expectation than wide receivers or sometimes running backs, especially running backs like the ones on the Jets. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. So Carson Wentz, who was a tournament winning quarterback this week because of the guys that were tied to him, does not really have that 30 to 35 point ceiling, at least not at this point in his career. Maybe that's a part of the fact that like he just throws so many balls up and throws them shorts and he gets a lot of yards through PI, so he's not gaining that 300-yard passing. He's crossed it once this season, and just ending up with like somewhat pedestrian days, even though he's got multiple touchdowns. Now maybe the Jets are the thing that cures all that ails you, as they've given up a ton of points to opposing tight ends, the most points over the last 4 weeks to opposing tight ends, and we do have tight ends on this slate to talk about. But any single time I have Carson Wentz, I'm going to include 2 pass catchers. I will not be forcing Taylor into my Wentz double stacks, but I will not exclude him either. I'm going to make sure that I get at least 2, and let's just isolate to Indy. I'm going to make sure that I get at least 2 guys from this passing attack. I'll include Hines. I'll include Cox. I'll include Doyle. Not going to include Mac. Don't even know if he's going to be on the team after the trading deadline. Anybody that you think is going to play and run a lot of routes, as well as the kicker, correlates very well with the captain spot, and every point matters when it comes to building your showdown lineups. I'll also be including players on the other side. Now, like, let's take a look at the Colts here. So, like, it's basically Michael Pittman getting 25% of the targets, then Pascal, then Nyheim Hines, JT coming in right behind Hines, which most people did not expect, but Mo Elliott, because he's really not topping like 3-4 targets in a game. I don't see any path to him getting like 8 to 10 targets in most games, and let alone this one, where Nyheim Hines, if the game kind of goes sideways or there's a lot of 2-minute drill or long down and distance, he could get you that 6 to 8 targets in a game, realistically, even with a decreased snap count. Mo Alley Cox at 10%, Paris Campbell, like, none of these guys are really all that involved, although Jack Doyle. Tight ends are better for showdown, even with low target market shares, because they are more involved in the red zone, as you can see here with Doyle getting 12% of the market share, Mo Alley Cox getting 12%. Pascal locked up a lot early, but has not done as much as of late. Now, looking over at the Jets, in terms of their target market share, it's really skewed. One, because for some reason, NFL Savant does not have Michael Carter, and he'd be like right here between Corey Davis and Elijah Moore, because he has like 37 targets on the year. Ty Johnson with 27 targets on the year. And taking a look, like I said, over here at the Jets running backs, Michael Carter, the last 2 weeks, has 25 targets, which is good enough for like a 25% market share. That's alpha wide receiver level of the market share of targets. That's like the amount of targets that Michael Pittman has been getting based on the attempts that have been thrown from Carson Wentz. And then you look over at Ty Johnson, and Ty Johnson has gotten 13 targets the last 2 weeks. Both of them are playable. Targets worth way more than carries. So, like, I would much rather have running backs that are on the field a ton, getting a lot of usage, getting carries on the ground, as we see with Michael Carter kind of taking the job the last few weeks. Double-digit carries in every single game, and big playability from him as well. He just hasn't flashed it much because of the way that this Jets offense kind of runs right now. It's just not that good, but I think he's actually #good. If you're playing Mike White as your captain, and while you may guffaw when I say that, Mike White double stack took down the Listener League last week. And the one thing, if you read all the reports about Mike White, was that he definitely has arm talent. This was a guy who was projected to be a major league pitcher throughout his high school days, and then he just kind of chose to be a quarterback. So arm talent is not what's lacking with him, and based on game script and game flow, as they are 10-point underdogs in this game, you would expect it to be a situation where he's going to throw and throw often. And with 2 pass-catching backs as safety valves, we can actually tie them into his pass-catching group because he throws so much to opposing or to his running backs. We're going to have to monitor Corey Davis and his hip injury. Has a chance to play Thursday night. We'll know 90 minutes before if he's playing. We're going to include him. Berrios also involved. Tyler Kroft would be in that group. Amendola would be involved in that group. The rookie Elijah Moore also would be involved in that group. Runs a lot of short passes, but has big playability after he gets the ball in his hands. Keelan Cole had the catch of the season overturned for a touchdown this week. I'm demanding that just be considered a touchdown on general principle, because that was an amazing play. Like, there's no, well, technically he was out of bounds and we can't allow that to be a touchdown. Hell no, we're going to riot, because that was the catch of the year. And now it wasn't a catch, and that kind of sucks. And then as our bring back group, if you're going to have Mike White, we're going to build another group that includes every single player on Indy's offense. Now, with running backs, I'm not typically going to force running backs to have very much opposite them. Like, I'm probably not going to play Jonathan Taylor against the Jets defense. But if I have Michael Carter at captain, I'm probably going to include him in the, if Michael Carter is captain, I'm going to include Mike White as well, because if Carter has a massive day, it's probably going to be because he caught the ball a ton and scored at least a touchdown in this spot, which means that Mike White probably also had a good day. Probably not going to use that rule with Ty Johnson. This is a slate specific rule for this Thursday night. I'm also going to force only one defense or kicker in total. Like we always do, I kind of build that other flex group to make sure that I don't have more than 2 kickers and defenses. But I may amend that only for the Colts, right? Like, I'm not going to have the Jets defense and their kicker in one lineup. Why did I miss their defense? There it is. I'm not going to allow their kicker and defense to be in the same lineup, but I may allow Badgley and the Colts defense to be in the same lineup, but only one in total if it's not both of them. Just kind of the way that I'm looking at this slate. Again, 30,000 feet view right now, still way out from it. So let's go over to the Fantasy Labs lineup builder and take a look at how it should look. All right, so let's take a look at those rules in the Fantasy Lab lineup builder. Very simple to take care of here, right? Pair the captain quarterback with exactly 2 wide receiver, tight end, or kicker from the same team. Pair your captain quarterback with exactly 1 of the opponent's offensive players, excluding their kicker or defense. Pair the wide receiver captain with the quarterback from the same team. Pair the tight end captain exactly 1 quarterback from the same team as well. If you have a tight end or a wide receiver at captain, you're going to pair them with their quarterback. And limit to at most 1 defense or kicker from the same game. I could just change this to 2 and then make another rule that states that I have to allow Indy to do it. The most important group, though, is you're going to want to add at least 1 and then pick 4, 5, or 6 players that project to be like 20% or down and force at least one of them into every lineup. I don't have the percentages yet. I don't know where things are going to go, so I'm not going to use that rule just yet. Apply your settings. Head over to the lineup builder. I'm going to build 150 lineups. We'll build them by points per salary. How about that? We're going to generate these lineups, and then you're going to have to finagle with it a bunch and make sure that you limit your quarterbacks. I typically don't have more than 15 quarterback at captain percentage points throughout all of my lineups. It'll probably be way lower on this slate, probably between 5 and 10 in total between both teams. And then you're going to have to make sure that the lineups correlate and look the way that you want, and make sure that you have the exposure, that you're not overexposed to certain low percentage plays. You kind of want to spread that out as well if you're building 150. And if you're building 150 lineups, you don't have to enter the biggest tournament. They have mini max games on both sites that you can enter if you're a smaller bankrolled player that wants to try out mass multi-entry for the first time. So thank you guys for being here. Drop a like, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.
He's a legend.